Hello, everybody. My name is Michael Gonzalez, and I'm here with Hispanics in Philanthropy. And on the line is also Anita Gallagher, who is our training and outreach consultant for our crowdfunding platform, HipGive. So thank you again for those of us who joined the first two webinars. This is our third and final webinar for the Salud for All campaign. And with that, let me go ahead and hand it over to Anita to get us started.
Thanks very much, Michael. It's good to be here with everyone again for the third time. We're hoping that you're really on your way to putting together a really successful crowdfunding campaign within the Salud for All movement. Michael, before we get going on the training, and as more and more people are just coming on the call, I was wondering, could you maybe just share with us the different types of organizations that have been showing their interest and getting their projects together?
Sure, no problem. So, so far we've had, organizations who've run crowdfunding platform or campaigns with us in the past, but then we also have folks who have never ran crowdfunding platform or campaigns as well. We have folks from Southern California, Northern California, Central California. We have folks working in environmental justice areas. We have folks who are working on immigrant rights around health access and things like that. So we have a really good range of interested organizations who are participating in Salud for All. So yeah.
That sounds great. So really lots of different types of causes, lots of different types of organizations, which will make the movement much stronger and make us stronger in the unity that comes from the diversification of the different projects. So that's great. For those of us who are maybe joining us for the first time, we are part of the Hispanics in Philanthropy and HipGive team. You've heard Michael, my name is Anita, and you may also come in touch with Andrea or Amalia throughout the course of the Salud for All campaigns. So it's great to be with you today. And as I said, as we've mentioned, this is the third webinar. So we've already covered a lot of what HipGive and why there are advantages and benefits to running a crowdfunding campaign as part of Salud for All. So today we'll really go down to the practicalities of it all. Rather than doing theory, we want to talk about real life success. So I'm going to be sharing with you some two quick insights into two projects that were really successful in raising money for health projects on HipGive. And then we will be moving on to explaining a little bit more about how we can help you and to message the big themes of Salud for All and the campaign handbook that we've put together as a way to support you in the process. And we know that time is moving fast. We want to give you a chance towards the end of the webinar today to get started, make sure you understand how to get your project up on the HipGive platform. And there will be lots of time for questions and conversation at the end. So please do use the chat function, the question function. If you have a question as we go along, you can type it in and we'll answer as soon as we can. And if not, there'll be time at the end. We will also be recording the session and sharing the materials that we refer to by email afterwards. So don't worry, you will have access to everything that we reference. So we've got most people on board. Let's get started. As I mentioned in previous sessions, we've been talking about the 4 stages of a crowdfunding campaign and how if you follow those 4 stages, you really put together a campaign that is well focused, that will respond to your donors' interests, something that you can promote in a really proactive way and bring on board ambassadors or allies or those people who can use their peer-to-peer connections and give you access to a much wider audience. And of course, the final step of those 4 stages is closing out your campaign and making sure you go on to cultivate a relationship with those donors as they become part of your community and part of your family of supporters. But the big question is, how does that really work out in practice? It sounds very good in theory, but in real life, how does it all get done and how does it come together? So I wanted to just highlight 2 projects that we've had on the platform. This one is from a couple of years ago. It's from a California-based organization. And they project really stood out for us because of the very simple and straightforward way that they presented their need to the community of potential donors. So as you can see here, they raised over $7,000 from 240 donors, which again is a really remarkable feat. 240 people sounds perhaps easy on paper, but in real life, that's a big community of support that they were able to achieve throughout their campaign. And I would encourage you to go onto the HipGive platform, look for this project, and see how they described what they were doing. I put it up here on the screen, but if you read through that text, you'll see that they really make it easy to understand both what they're doing, which is distributing fresh fruit and vegetables, but how they're linking that to community building and education and long-term impacts for the people they work with. And they're very clear and concise about how they will use the funds and how those will make a positive impact on the community they're working with. So if you're looking for inspiration within California of health organizations that have already been very successful in crowdfunding campaigns, then I would recommend that you take a deeper dive into the project called Improve the Health of Immigrant Families. Have a look at the video, have a look at the photographs, read that description of the project and see if there's anything that you can learn that you think would be relevant to how you want to present your project. And as we mentioned before, the way that you frame your project, the way that you describe what you're doing, not just in terms of how it's important to your organization, but of the terms of the impact that it will make in the community, the impact it will make for immigrant families, the way in which that impact will translate into a long-term benefit and improvement in quality of life is a very important way to convince people that supporting your project is really worthwhile. So that's one example. Another example that I've been learning a lot more about recently is a project called Chicago 2017 Running for Premature Babies. So you'll see this was a project that ran last year on the platform. They raised over $4,000 and obviously the cause was for premature babies. Now the interesting thing about this project is that they really did make the most of peer-to-peer connections and that personal connection. So rather than just being an organization, putting their project up on the platform and saying, hey people, come and support our project. What was the most original about it was the genesis of the project. So the organization behind it is called Con Amor Vencerás, but what happened was that they found a champion, and the champion's name is Daniel, and he is a keen runner and he had been looking for a cause. And so they came up with this partnership that Daniel would run the marathon and raise money for the program for premature babies in Con Amor Vencerás. Now, there's nothing maybe perhaps incredibly unique about that. People run marathons, people do sports-related challenges for good causes all the time. But what we found really insightful when we asked them a little bit more about what they did was just how they went about their promotion and what that tells us about how crowdfunding campaigns work. Because if we go back to the 4 steps, so many organizations spend most of their time working on the project and how to present it and the materials and the video and the photo and the text. And then they promote the campaign in a very organizational way. And what we have found is if we try and move our campaign out of the organizational sphere and move it into the personal sphere, then that is when the campaign really takes off. We have to get people involved in a personal way. And so I'm just going to explain to you over the next couple of slides how that worked in the Running for Premature Babies project. First of all, what they were able to do is put up a really, I would say, authentic and original type of video. Let me see if I can switch over the screens to show you just a little part of the video. Here we go. Now, hopefully, you should see the video screen.
From Mexico, and I'm running for charity this year, and I wanted to invite all of you to this cause. A little bit about myself. I started running when I was a child, but I didn't do it really seriously until 6 years ago, when I realized that I needed to lose a lot of weight, and I just running for it, and I lost 25 kilos.
Sorry.
And I'm running for charity this year, and I wanted to invite all of you to this cause. A little bit about myself. I started running when I was a child, but I didn't do it really seriously until 6 years ago, when I realized that I needed to lose a lot of weight, and I just running for it, and I lost 25 kilograms, and I managed to run my first marathon in 2012. Now I will be running my 11th marathon, and I want to do it with a particular cause, in this case, prematurity. Why? Because my nephew Liam was born on week 31, and he had to stay for 5 weeks at the neonatal intensive care unit in the hospital. Then my niece, May, she was born on week 24, and unfortunately she died 24 hours later. That is the kind of pain that my sister, her husband, and our family definitely do not wish for anyone else, and awareness will help on this. So, in collaboration with Con Amor Vencerás, which is an organization that my very good friend founded after the prematurity birth and death of her babies, Andres and Vicente Andres, and with Fundación Mujer México, we are aiming to raise $3,500 to create awareness about prematurity in our country. Any donation that you can make will really make a difference, and we will create an impact in our country. So let's talk about having a better start in life and run for prematurity. Thank you.
Okay, I'm just going to switch back. Perfect. So I hope you see the presentation again. Now, what I love about that video, and when we talked about it a lot actually in the office, was how it shows how you don't need a professional production. That video was just simply Danielle going out in one of the landmarks in Mexico City. Jessica had her smartphone and she took the video. They had talked a little bit previously about the script. And as you see, the way that he presented the project was not even all about the project itself. He did mention what they were going to do with the funds. It's about raising awareness for prematurity, but they didn't go into a lot of detail. It was more an opportunity for Danielle to tell his story about how he got involved and why this means a lot to him. And I think anyone who listens to that can't help but thinking that this is a powerful cause and connecting with the emotion of the story that Danielle shared. So it shows us that we don't have to put a lot of money into doing a very big institutional video. What makes more of a difference in a successful crowdfunding campaign is having that very authentic message and having a person share a personal message. It sounds very repetitive, but really that is what is at the heart of a successful crowdfunding campaign. Now, I spoke to Jessica and to Danielle about the other ways that they promoted the project. They did several email blasts to their databases. They did a lot of work on Facebook and a couple of other social media channels. And they also were able to get a radio spot, which was on a national level station and got a lot of exposure through the spot on the radio. But when I spoke to them about what had been most effective and where the conversions had been made to people who had heard about the campaign and had actually then became donors to the campaign, they were very clear that what had worked the most was social media. That the emails that went out to the organization's database, well, they were people who'd already been in touch with the organization, and maybe some of them donated as a response to that, but they didn't think the level of conversion was very high. And the radio spot, they thought probably made a big impact in terms of putting the organization on the radar of people and obviously raising awareness of the issue, which is prematurity and the way that people are able to deal with prematurity. But they thought that definitely what was most effective in converting people into donors for the campaign was Facebook. And in fact, when they compared the results of the organization's Facebook compared to Jessica and Danielle's own personal Facebooks, and their promotion of the campaign, they found that the vast majority of donors to the campaign had been reached by Danielle's own personal Facebook. Now, of course, that is a part of the way that the campaign was set up. Danielle was running a marathon, and so he was able to reach out to many friends and family who were very admired his commitment and his dedication to raising money in this way. But it also shows as well that by putting people front and center of the campaign, we build that personal connection, we build the empathy, and that is what motivates people to give. So here are some examples of what they did on social media. They had regular updates. They were updating 2 or 3 times a week during the campaign. They were, mixing up the messages. The messages that we have on the screen are a lot to do with the race itself, but they were mixing up the messages between Danielle's own personal messages about why it was important and to get involved, and combining that with information and awareness raising about the importance of the work being done with premature babies. And as you saw in the video, they were very clear about using the hashtag #RunForPrematurity hashtag. They were very clear about always as well including the link to the HipGive page so that people could immediately convert that interest into clicking onto the project and being able to make a donation. And by using not only the official publications on the organization's social media channels, but also using Jessica's personal networks and Danielle's personal networks, they were really able to go outside that captive community, which you would think would be the good supporters of the campaign, and find new people. And it was those new people from their personal networks that actually became the donors. So I think that's a really interesting insight to show us that we don't need to have a really big professional marketing campaign set up. We don't need to have this, a big, strong organizational video that's completely professionally scripted. We can make our own homemade video, as it were. We need to focus more on having the personal messaging and the personal storytelling, as opposed to the organizational or the institutional storytelling. And of course, if we translate that into the last step of the 4-step process, when it comes to closing, they were able, therefore, to celebrate, not only celebrating the fact that Danielle had completed the marathon, but celebrate the fact that they had raised all this money from over 60 donors, celebrate what they were going to be able to spend it on, and get in touch individually with each of the donors using the download the donor list function on HipGive, to cultivate that relationship. So it wasn't just a person-to-person connection throughout the campaign, it has to remain a person-to-person connection throughout the subsequent phases as they begin to implement their project with the funds it raised. And to keep up this idea of celebration and of warmth that the project and the relationship with the donors that they were able to cultivate with throughout. So those are just a couple of little insights to show us that really the personal connection is what makes the difference in a crowdfunding campaign. But I also wanted to focus as well on some of the other benefits, because as I talked to Jessica and to Danielle, I mean, they were very clear. It was that honest and authentic personal connection that made the difference to the fundraising. But there were many other non-financial benefits that they found from the campaign in terms of raising the number of people that were following them on social media, reaching out to those new audiences and having a connection with more people that had never supported the cause in the past. There was the publicity and the awareness that they gained from the radio. And so there is this reflection that even if you don't raise the total amount of money that you'd hope for, even if you're not entirely successful in monetary terms or financial terms, there's a lot more to be gained from running the campaign and putting your organization out there and talking about the good work that you're doing in the community. So I was wondering, Michael, if I could pass the ball back to you, and that you could also share with us some of those bigger messages. And because I know that the example that I shared was about prematurity, and maybe there's nothing more drastic than life and death for premature babies. But the work that the organizations are doing in raising health equity throughout California is important on so many different levels. So could you maybe share with us some of the messages, the wider messages that our organizations can tap into to make sure that their campaigns have the most impact, not just on an economic level, but also on awareness and on other levels?
Sure. Thank you so much, Anita. This has all been really, really helpful. So thanks again for everybody for joining us. And I just want to kind of reiterate what I said on the second webinar and pull back a little bit and talk a little bit about the importance of Salud for All campaign and health equity to HIP's overall direction, especially under our new president, Ana Maria Argelagos. So the Salud for All campaign is first and foremost about listening and learning from the organizations and stakeholders like those of you on this webinar who have long been working to eliminate health disparities in a number of different ways in a number of different communities all across California and beyond. So we hope to be able to provide multiple forums for highlighting the important work that you are doing and bring information to funders and our larger audience an understanding of the prevailing barriers facing the Latino community and other underserved communities to living healthy, productive lives. We believe that an important first step is to explore and understand the social determinants of health within the Latino community and how they're inextricably linked to the deep-seated issues of inequity. That's why HIP, along with generous support of the California Endowment, launched the Salud for All campaign And with this campaign, we're aiming to essentially accomplish two main goals. The first of which is to raise awareness and create a sense of urgency among national level funders of the pressing needs of Latino communities in California. The second is to increase visibility and voice of Latino community organizations in California, highlighting the breadth and depth of this work, its many intersections, and the power of working collectively to advance health equity for Latinos and communities of color. A major piece of this campaign is to connect and partner with leading community organizations and networks to hold briefings and webinars that convene a national group of foundation leaders to learn about best practices for eliminating health disparities. We hope that by engaging funders and spotlighting organizational partners, we will ultimately see increased investments in health equity for Latino communities in California and the rest of the country. So in order to do so, we want to hear from you. We ask that you share with us any content, whether it be reports, articles, blog posts, etc., that we can in turn disseminate to our membership, our national network, through social media channels, and of course, the Salud for All homepage as well. We want Salud for All to really capture the energy and the sheer scope of issue areas impacting health outcomes for Latinos and others in the state. So just as a rundown, if you have anything that you want to send me, go ahead from, you can either email me at michael@hiponline.org, and that'll also be embedded in the presentation that we disseminate afterwards. And we would love to go ahead and disseminate any sort of relevant information that your organization has to kind of help generate the increased visibility and the momentum of the campaign as well. So, and then also some upcoming events that you might want to just jot down are later this month, we're going to have a report pre-release meeting in Chicago on June 19th. And that's going to be directly prior to the Grant Makers in Health Conference, National Conference. And then we're going to have upcoming content webinars as well, including one on a report release that we had done with UCSF that will really dive into the data from that report, as well as partnerships and funders and organizations who will really start to explore the important themes like immigration and health, mental health issues within the Latino community, aging, and others. And then also stay tuned for an in-person meeting that we'll be seeking to hold this fall. So we'll definitely be disseminating all that information on all of those events to everybody who's on this call and anybody who's been on the webinars or has participated in Salud for All. So just be sure to look out for that, and we'll make sure that everybody is on the listserv and we'll get that latest information.
That's great. So we really can see that the crowdfunding component of this campaign is really just a kickoff of what is a really big process about strengthening, giving voice and power to organizations that are working across California on these issues. So that's great. Now, one of the most immediate things that we're doing to help you along the way, especially for the crowdfunding aspect of the campaign, is the handbook. So we'll be sending out this handbook to everybody who's been on the webinars with us. It really, more than just a toolkit, it really is guidance step by step to how to make the most of participating in the Salud for All crowdfunding campaign. And again, one of the big reasons, one of the big benefits of why you should definitely take part is the incentive of the matching funds. So as you may have heard before, we will have $10,000 of matching funds available for all the organizations participating in Salud for All. Those are going to be split into 2 days, $5,000 available on June 28th and $5,000 available on July the 10th. Now, we went into a little bit more detail on that in the previous webinar, so you can listen back to that if you're interested, or this information is all found in the campaign handbook. I do encourage you to both make the most. It's a wonderful opportunity to be able to double the funds for your project, but please do read the guidance in the handbook carefully, because while it's not overly complicated, we do want to make sure that you understand the rules of the competition, because at the end of the day, the resources are limited. And as often happens, some organizations may be more successful in getting their donations in at the right time on the matching funds day, and they'll get more donations. And we want to make sure that everybody has understood the rules beforehand. And by understanding the rules, you're of course in a much better position to communicate the rules, or as it were, the opportunities, to your communities and to your potential donors. And that way you'll be able to maximize your ability to get some of those matching funds for your project. So we'll be sending out the handbook soon. Not only does it have information on matching funds, it has lots of the graphics, the logos, the images, stuff that you can download and use in your own campaigns. We have some language and suggested posts and templates for both social media and for emails. So we're hoping that it really will be a really practical, useful tool to help you move ahead with your crowdfunding campaigns. And the other thing that we wanted to encourage you to do as soon as possible was to get started on actually creating your project. We've been monitoring, and we can see as the organizations sign on, create their usernames, start their project drafts. But if you haven't done that yet, then please do. And in fact, we're very big fans sometimes of multitasking in HipGive. So if you do feel so inclined, please go right now onto hipgive.org, have a look on the homepage for that big red create button at the top of the screen, and start creating your project draft right now. The advantage is, of course, that you can open that draft, create a username, create a project, and go in and out as many times as is necessary while you upload your content, your videos, your text, your photographs, etc. There's no limit on how long that editing process can take. But if you do want to take part in Salud for All, we do need to have your project in. I think, Michael, we said that the date was 21st of June, right? The last day that we need to have your project submitted on the platform to be eligible for the matching funds days.
Yes, that's correct.
So
and the project and the campaign launch date will be a week later on June 28th. That's
right, the first day of matching funds. So please do take a time now, if you haven't already done so, to click on that create button. And investigate, explore what that creative project page is like. And in fact, if you have any questions about that, well, then we're going to be here for the next part of the session to answer any of your questions and queries. There it is. I had already gotten ahead of myself. I'd written up on the screen. 21st of June is the last day to submit your projects. Michael, I don't know if you have any other pertinent information to add. I'm going to open up the question box and see what questions our listeners have.
Yeah, I think we can go ahead and jump in. It looks like we have two already. I think Juan's was first, and then we can address Bobby's.
Thanks. So Juan says he started working his project and didn't see it on the list. Can you submit the project anytime? Yes, of course you can. We're always on hand to help you. So if you come up across any technical difficulty, and then just send us an email. Normally, it's a very straightforward project, and yes, you can submit your project anytime. 21st of June is the final deadline, so that we have time to review the projects and get them published. But you can submit your project anytime. And in fact, there's probably a lot of benefits in submitting your project early, because it means that we have more time to give you any useful feedback if we think we can help you in any way. And of course, Michael, who is the central node for coordinating all these different projects and seeing the diversity and richness of what is being done, he will have more time to feed your project into that overall Salud for All pipeline and be aware of what you're doing. So definitely some benefits into getting it up on the platform and submit to us as soon as possible. Bobby has a question. Are the online fees similar to previous years, 6%? Well, the good news on that, Bobby, is that in fact, the online fees are being reduced. As of last year, HipGive doesn't charge any administrative fee, and we only charge the processing fee, shall we say, for the financial transactions. And that comes in at 2.9%. And so really, around about 3% is given there's a little additional per donation fee. 3% is the total commission of what you'll pay for using HipGive. Nancy has a question. Is there a time frame of when the money we fundraise needs to be spent? From a technical standpoint on HipGive, no, there's no time frame. We recommend that you try and make them reasonably short-term projects that can be implemented within 3 to 6 months, because then that gives you the opportunity after 6 months or 8 months to send information to your donor about what you've achieved with the funds that they contributed to. And that keeps donor satisfaction at a high level. So that's recommendable, but not obligatory. Michael, do you have any particular timeframes for the Salud for All projects?
Yeah, so essentially you can go ahead and run the project past July, but as far as most of the communication strategy and high visibility sort of things on our end that we'll be doing to promote the campaign, those will pretty much end at the end of July. So essentially the Salute for All campaign, at least the crowdfunding portion, will run the course of July.
That's correct. Okay, that's all the immediate questions. I don't know if anyone has any more questions, either technical related to how to use the platform and what type of content is appropriate, or bigger questions about the overall Salute for All initiative. Michael can also open up the microphones if you're feeling shy and you don't want to, or maybe if you want to explain in more words that you feel able to type in, we can open up the microphones as well. What do you think, Michael? Anything else to add in?
Yeah, as Anita said, you know, if anybody wants to go ahead and have their microphone open, just hit the hand raising icon. But if not, maybe while folks are kind of ruminating on any questions they may have, maybe you can go ahead and kind of take them through the creating process on HipGive on the screen share.
Sure. Let me just open it up. Okay, so you should be seeing now the homepage of HipGive. Let me just fix the resolution. There we go. So as we mentioned, it really is a simple process to create your project. You just hit the create button. You can go in both ways. In fact, if you want to log in or sign up, first of all, you can go in there and you'll create an account and go straight to your dashboard. But if you don't have an account and you want to just jump in straight away and explore, you can hit create. And then it will say, let's get started. And this is where you add in the name of your project, the amount. You can choose which languages. Now, this is an interesting question, actually. Some organizations ask us, is it okay to just do it in one language? And the answer is, of course. But it really depends on your audience. So framing your project to suit your audiences is one of the main things about crowdfunding success. So we recommend that if you do have the ability, put it in both languages, because you never know at the end of the day who will read it. So let me just fill in some things so we can progress. When we're talking about amounts, normally we would say that anything between 5,000 and 10,000 is really viable. If you don't want to be overly ambitious, you could maybe go for a goal of $3,000, $4,000. If you're feeling very ambitious, then between $10,000, $20,000. That's not to put a limit on it. If you feel that you have the experience, ability, and the audiences, you can go ahead and aim for more. But we find that 4,000, 5,000 are really strong amounts of what is very viable, especially if it's your first or one of your first crowdfunding projects. This is where it's going to ask me to sign up, and let me see if I can use my details to log in. And here we go. And so this is an example of a dashboard. Now the dashboard is where you can see all of your different projects at different stages. And you can actually see if you've made any donations as well, and your history of donations as a donor in HipGive. But here we'll go into the project that I just created, Salute for All, and we can keep on editing. On this page, we ask that you fill in some information about your organization. So you'll be able to upload information about the main contact, the person that we will be in touch with throughout as a contact for the campaign, upload a photo, name, and contact details. Somebody asked previously on the chat about how will we know that you are an organization that wants to take part in Salute for All. And here is the drop-down menu. So in this part that says special campaign or matching fund, you're going to select Salute for All 2018. And then that way we'll know for sure that you want to be included in, obviously, the Salute for All, but you will be eligible for the matching funds as well. In fund recipient, you write in the name of your organization, and for US-based organizations, we need your tax ID. And the document that you need to upload here is your 501c3 letter that shows that you're a 501c3 category organization. If for any reason you want to take part and you don't have a 501c3 letter, then remember that you can take part if you find a fiscal sponsor, that is an organization that does have 501c3 status, and it can be like your validating organization. They can receive the funds on your behalf and work with you to implement the project. And so this is just basic information to fill in. It won't let me move on until I complete the basics. It's not going to let me go on, Michael, because I don't have my document ready to upload. But as you can see, it really is a simple form. There we go, on to tell our story. Tell a story is the part of the form where you probably need to spend the most time thinking about your contact, because as you can see, you choose your category and you upload your images and your video, your location, your duration. Those are all very objective features, shall we say. But here you have the project summary. And again, that's where you have the opportunity to share your story in a really compelling way. So take time, investigate how that will look on screen, how much text, how long you want to make that text. You can upload it in English or in Spanish. And then the next part of the form is setting up the automatic thank you message. Now that thank you message is something that we will send out automatically to everybody who contributes to your campaign. So you can put either in English or in Spanish or in both, a relatively short message, but that goes out straight after a person makes a donation. It doesn't substitute, however, the ability that you have to send out your own organizational branded or campaign branded thank yous. And as we've mentioned, for everybody who donates to your campaign, you'll be able to have access to their contact details through the donor management function of the platform. So irrespective of the fact that they will receive that automatic thank you, please do, when you're reaching the end stages of your campaign, make sure that you send your own thank you message to all of your donors. There's a little bit of space to fill in the project budget if you want to share how the funds will be used. And the perks or donation levels are ways of establishing giving levels, so that you can incentivize people to give at a certain level, be it if you want to say for $10, you get this level of recognition, or a perk for $20, for $50, for $100, etc. So that's really how simple the form is. Just go through step by step, answer the questions. You'll be able to preview it before you send it. And then once you do submit it to us, we will review it all, make sure it looks good. If we have any tips or helpful ideas on how to strengthen it even further, we'll share that with you. And once the project is approved, we'll publish it online, both on the general HipGive platform and as part of the Salute for All campaign site itself. Normally that turnaround of between the time that we receive your submitted project and the time that we publish it would be between 2 or 3 working days. So that's really, Michael, the overview of the submission process. Maybe it would be a good idea to ask if the people on our call have already started that process, how far along they are with it, if they need any extra help in putting together the materials, or how else we can be helpful to them in that process.
Yeah, and let me just add that, as you are working your way through this process of creating your projects, just remember that if you go to the Salute for All homepage, landing page, essentially we'll have all 3 of the webinar recordings on there. as well as a soon-to-be toolkit that'll be released probably, I think, later today or tomorrow to the group as well. So, and if that's not enough, then of course we'll be on hand as well to help out. So between the webinar recordings, the handbook, and of course the HipGive staff here, you should have all the resources you need to get your project up and running.
Great. Well, there, I've put the screen hopefully back to sharing the main presentation so you can see our email addresses if you want to reach out directly with any questions or queries. My email is anita@hiponline.org. So any question you have about how to use HipGive, the platform itself, or about best practice and tips for how to make the most of your crowdfunding campaign, then please do feel free to get in touch. And anything else that's to do with Salute for All in general, program-related topics, you can reach out to Michael at michael@hiponline.org. We do have also, as well as a handbook or the toolkit that we've been mentioning, there are a lot of articles and general guidance on crowdfunding on our Learning Center, which is hipgive.org/learn. So there's lots of resources to keep you going.
With that said, are there any lingering last questions that folks need to ask before we sign off here?
Apparently not, Michael. We'd rather be
Okay.
comprehensive or people are busy working away at the project, I hope.
That's good, thanks.
We leave it at that, short and sweet for today.
Yes. Well, thanks everybody for joining us. I know it's been a good, nice journey over the course of these 3 webinars to really take you from, you know, the birth of this campaign to, you know, delve into the weeds of what it really means to create your project on HipGive. And huge thank you to Anita as well for providing such great training along these webinars.
You're welcome. So it's the beginning of the journey. The training doesn't stop here. Do reach out if you have any questions. We'll be sending tips and other information throughout the campaign as well. So I hope to be in touch with each of you and see your progress along the way and help you raise lots of money for the good work that you're doing. Thank you, and everyone, thank you very much, and we'll sign off.